Hello and welcome to the show News at 7, where every story shapes a world. I'm your host Mahnoor Qureshi. Let's take a look on the top stories we are going to discuss in tonight's show. The US government shutdown continues since October 1st, 2025, marking the longest shutdown in the history as the stalemate disrupts air travel, federal services and businesses while creating growing economic and logistical challenges nationwide. Pakistan warmly welcomes Sikh pilgrims from India and across the world, showcasing its commitment to interfaith harmony and respect for religious diversity. As the world prepares for COP30, Pakistan is advancing its climate diplomacy with an updated, nationally determined contribution and a climate prosperity plan designed to foster a low-carbon, resilient and inclusive economy. Those were the top stories we are going to discuss, and we'll start from the United States. The United States government has been shut down since October 1st, 2025, after Congress failed to agree on funding a bill. Now it's the 39th day and it has been the longest shutdown in the US history. The situation is becoming quite serious across the country because the Federal Aviation Administration has told airlines to reduce flights at 40 major airports, cutting about 4% of operations and warning that it could rise up to 10% if staff shortage continues. On Saturday alone, we have seen that around 1,460 flights were cancelled at 12 major cities. Reported that's the long delay because of lack of air traffic controllers, and we have seen that more than 13,000 controllers and about 50,000 airport security workers are still working without pay or working overtime to keep the airport running. And the shutdown is causing serious damage to the tourism, the cargo transport and the small business that are depending on the federal services of US government, aiding to the economic pressure across the country. And we'll be discussing that tonight. And for that, we are joined by Ambassador Imran Chaudhry. Thank you so much, Mr. Imran, for joining us today. I'll start that. What are the main triggers and what were the issues that triggered the government for this abruption, that triggers the government for not passing the bill and for stopping the funding?
You see, this is built into the U.S. Constitution. It has separation of powers and checks and balances. So Mr. Trump passed some executive tenets which were not approved by the Congress, and this mainly related to subsidies on health, which Mr. Trump was loath to pass, and which the Democrats wanted passed at all costs. So that has brought the government to a shutdown. And as you very rightly pointed out, shutdowns have taken place in US history, but none has been as long as this one.
All right. So what do you think that what does the FAA's directives to reduce flight by 4% that could be up to 10% at 40 major airports of US? Tell us about the broader impact of this on the economy of US.
Before we go to the broader impact, remember this is the Thanksgiving season in the US. So by 27th November, all loved ones will gravitate towards their hometowns, cut a turkey with their parents, with their grandparents, with their grandchildren. So everybody is traveling in the US. So say till the 14th or the 15th, maybe the US would be able to manage this by reducing flights to unpopular areas or small airports. But after the 15th, it's going to become catastrophic because Thanksgiving is very important in the calendar of the US. So, and if this, like you asked, If that sustains beyond the 27th of November, then of course airlines are going to face shutdowns, and that's going to be very serious.
Exactly, and as you have already mentioned that it's the Thanksgiving, people are traveling to US, and we have seen that with approximately 1,460 flights cancelled on just Saturday, on just one day. So how do you think
Yes.
about it? How is travel disruption manifesting for the passengers, for the travelers to the US, and what are the knock-on effects of it on the US economy and for the obviously the tourism and the people living there?
Now, see, travel in the U.S. Is very important, and it's unlike travel in Pakistan. So, if in Pakistan you have to go to Karachi from Islamabad, and if the flight is not on, you can probably go via train or other things. In the U.S., distances are so long that travel is by air. So there is acute discomfort in U.S. airports, acute discomfort, and passengers are suffering. It's making the headlines now. And so the suffering is great. And like I told you, it is going to get greater. And down the line, say if it goes on to December near the Christmas season, then it is going to have major impact in billions on the US economy. It's another thing that the US still has a pretty strong economy, although it's facing one of its weaker moments nowadays. So usually the US comes out of it. But this time, what is different is that the US president's personality is slightly more divisive than before. And therefore, it's not only about issues related to health subsidies and other things. It's also to show Mr. Trump down on part of the Democrats.
Exactly, we have seen that, but there are other sectors who are being affected by it. What are those sectors? We have talked about the cargo shipping, the tourism sector, the food aid programs that are already going on, and they are being stopped by this shutdown. What would be the impact of it on US, diplomatically or socially?
Diplomatically, usually the US comes out of it, but the social impacts are very great. Like you said, that the food subsidies or the food itself that is given to, if I might use the word, the less fortunate in US society, it's very troubling. More than that, 40% of the US employees, the federal employees, are already affected one way or the other. Just imagine 40%. And the upshot is that speculation is rife in the US that the Republicans or the Trump administration might use this shut off as an excuse to offlay uh, many US employees, which they feel are not warranted. And this is going to affect democratic strongholds.
Okay, we'll discuss about this as well, but you have mentioned almost thrice times that US would come out of it. How would US would come, out of it? Because we have seen there are a lot of things that not used to happen in US and that they are happening in US. So what would be the mechanism to coming out of it? Can you please shed light on it as well?
Yes, what happens usually is that when the events come to a total dead end, when doomsday is staring the US in the face, by the US I mean in this case the executive and the legislature, usually uh, usually legislators in the Democratic Party and in the Republican Party who are middle of the road. They then get together in Washington, D.C., they have late night meetings, and eventually, just prior to the precipice, they find an answer. But that is what has happened in the past. That does not take into account, as you rightly surmised, Mr. Trump's personality, the stability of the US economy, the US economy currently and the divisiveness that is part of the US polity. So I'm talking about history. Historically, these things happen, although this is the longest shutdown, but shutdowns have happened in the past. And usually they do end because eventually the US has to go on. But this time, if it goes on for too long, then we might see huge repercussions on the US economy.
Exactly, and it's already the longest shutdown in the US history. So what do you think that what options do US lawmakers have to end this shutdown, and what are the compromises they have on the table for each
So,
other to end this shutdown?
yes, so the Democrats are asking the Republicans to deal with the subsidies sector now. And remember, this is a long conflict in the US. The Republicans wanting less health subsidies and the Democrats traditionally wanting more health subsidies. So it's not related to Trump. It has gone on prior to this. So the Democrats want them to first come out with health subsidies, and then they would stop the shutdown or pass a bill. The Republicans give them verbal assurances that once you stop the shutdown, we'll discuss health subsidies with you.
All
So
right.
eventually, I think what will happen is that maybe the president himself, because nowadays the US government is usually run through direct presidential directives. What by that I mean, on his X account, on what he says. So probably an assurance publicly by the US president eventually that that once that they would discuss health subsidies the moment the shutdown is over. So probably that is the only way that this can end. But it looks pretty bad, and you're also right. For the uninitiated, these problems of the US presidential system, the political system, which is known to be a delivering system, when the world sees this, the world has second thoughts about the US greatness as a superpower when they feel that their own internal government has come to a shutdown.
All right, all right. Mr. Ambassador, you have mentioned about the health subsidy issue and health subsidy disagreement between the Republicans and Democrats. What are the other points of disagreements which needs to be addressed to end this shutdown?
The other points which are maybe not stated as clearly are Mr. Trump's roughshod over the legislature. Now he is, just as he's known across the world as a doer. Similarly, he does not seem to be following traditional patterns of the U.S. civil service or the U.S. institutions and the U.S. legislature. He pays very little heed to the State Department or the National Security Council and has his own foreign policy and national security policy. Domestically, he does not pay much heed to the US legislature's tremendous powers and does not negotiate his way through issues. He is impulsive. He thinks he has all power. He has also not treated if I might say so, the US judiciary well, because he has his own peculiar style of dealing with things. So I think deep down, the Democrats would want a more normal uh, U.S. president who would uh, who would who would pay respect to the legislature, pay respect to other institutions. They don't say it, but deep down, this is what they want.
Exactly. So that's the point of contention between the Democrats and Republicans. You have mentioned about the corner meetings, about the meetings on the weekends to resolve this shutdown in the historical aspect of it. You have mentioned that. So what are the efforts that are being made in the Senate's weekend session to resolve such issue, because they are working on the weekends as well. Most of the employees are working without pay or overtime to run the system. So what are the efforts being made in the Senate in the weekend session?
So they are going to get together. So the middle of the road legislators or senators who are not on the left side of the Democrats or the right side of the Republicans, those in the middle are going to meet together. There are clubs, there are session. Most of the things take place outside the Senate. So deals are struck in the U.S. In the U.S. and private meetings where everybody gives or take things. This is the nature of the U.S. political system. It is not as straight as sometimes we think it is. So whereas one would give in an inch in one respect, the other would probably want employment for his constituents. So that's how they meet, they fight, eventually they come to an agreement. It's usually a bad agreement, but it's an agreement nonetheless. But I think, which you rightly pointed out, I think that this is going to continue beyond the weekend. Uh, this is my projection, and because of the very strong divisive nature of the U.S. capital at this moment.
All right. So you have already mentioned in detail that US would come out of it diplomatically, but what would be the economic consequences of it if the shutdown continues for days or weeks or maybe months?
So first of all, as you pointed out, the U.S. airline industry, it would suffer a lot. And when the U.S. airline industry suffers, it's not only the airlines, it's employment, because they then cut employment, they cut routes, and this leads to general disruption, contracts. You remember, the U.S. is a very legal economy. So if you cannot fulfill a contract in time, then there are legal repercussions. If you can't fulfill a job, there are legal repercussions. So then the losses start. And sometimes when the losses start, then they progress across various sectors of the economy very quickly. And diplomatically also, what I said was that usually diplomatic repercussions start when the economy uh, comes nose diving, because the US is such a powerful country. But if this lasts for say even till the middle of December and the beginning of next year, the US will not be able to fulfill its foreign obligations also, because eventually foreign obligations all relate to the economy. And if it can't fulfill its foreign obligations by, let me give you an example, deliver an item it has promised to a country, import something for its citizens that it has already committed, then of course it's a great diplomatic loss of face as well. So for the sake of the US and for the sake of the world, I hope that this does not last beyond the Thanksgiving weekend. I hope they can wake up, and they can make up also before the Thanksgiving weekend, or if not, then uh, in the first week of December, by the first week of December.
All right. So, Mr. Imran, don't you think that all eyes on US, because Donald Trump happens to be a very different president as compared to the previous presidents of US, and all eyes on US, I'm saying it in a way that we are looking for US for, resolving our disputes, resolving the Gaza situation and a lot of things. So don't you think that it's a pressure on US because they have to deal with their domestic policies, they have to deal with the international issues and international conflicts as well. So don't we need multipolarity in the contemporary world?
We uh, we do need multipolarity, but sometimes even multipolarity is not all good. Whereas the US president is a very divisive figure. Remember that when I'm speaking now, although you haven't asked me with the viewpoint from a Pakistani citizen. Look, when the US president always followed the diktats of the US State Department, the institutional uh, things, and the National Security Council, or came through the bottom-up approach, we always had a bad relationship, because these state institutions also always followed previous scripts. So whereas this president is divisive, there is also a bit of freshness around him, that he says what comes to his mind and heart, and he says what he sees. So he doesn't read briefs. So that's why in a previous presidency, the US would not have come down and told the world that in the May conflict, 7 aircraft were shot down, or as he gets latest figures. They would have kept quiet. They would have, again, maybe punished Pakistan for crimes that Pakistan never committed. So therefore, the upside of this is that here is a president with his very small team of advisors who does not follow the script. So at the same time, your expression was very profound, that here is a country that we expect to deal with Gaza, with Ukraine, with Iran's nuclear program. And he's hosting Syria's Shara today in the White House. So here is a country that we expect to handle the world. And yet at the same time, this country cannot get out of its own gridlock. It can't solve its own problems even. So this is very profound.
That's the irony, but don't you think that it would give some edge to the countries who are, I'm talking about Iran, I'm talking about Syria. So does it give some edge to them, or as you have already mentioned that US would come out of it diplomatically, and obviously Trump is famous for their nationalist policies. So obviously it would, get the people's favor, people's support as well within the country.
Yes, if he comes out of it quickly, he would get people support. And in terms of multipolarity, you are right. When there is multipolarity, then countries where conflicts are taking place, as you rightly mentioned, they have more than one power to look up to. But there is also this fact on the ground now, that the world, as we see, as both of us see nowadays, is now being referred to as the G2 world. So the G2 world means that there is one superpower, that is the US, and there is a very strong second contender, and in some areas even which has beaten the US, and that is China. So the new G2 world is the US-China world. So even the reality on the ground means that the world is no longer multipolar. We use these words, uh, the global south and all these things, but the fact of the matter is that in the moment in which we live in today, there is the US and there is China, and these are the two sole superpowers of the world.
All right. So on one hand, we have talked about the multipolarity, but on the other hand, we have discussed that there is one superpower, and then there comes the second tier to it. But considering the current situation, and we have talked about the Trump's nationalist policies, we are hopeful that before it would end before the Thanksgiving weekend. But don't you think that, my second question, I need to repeat it because it would give some edge to the countries like the Iran or Syria or other countries that are dependent on US for resolving the conflict?
It would give them time. It would give them time, and it would probably give them some more options. But the fact remains that in Gaza, the only country that is capable of resolving it in at least some concessions to the Palestinians is firstly the US and then the eight-member Muslim Muslim state conglomerate that has now taken shape, and even that is not fully on the ground. So in Gaza, it is that. In the Ukraine conflict, uh, even the U.S. Cannot dictate things, and from all practices, the Ukrainian situation on the ground is getting weaker. And in terms of Iran, Iran would want to be left alone. And as you just said, maybe it would offer respite to countries like Iran and the countries where there would be conflict. So yes, you do have a point here.
All right. So at the end, I would ask you, because US is having a long history about the shutdowns, but it happens several times during the first term of President Trump, and now it happens
Yes.
for the second time, and it's the longest in the history. Don't you think that being a former ambassador or an analyst who's having vast experience on it, do you think that does US need to revisit their policies and revisit their issues between the Republicans and Democrats? Because they have a lot of responsibility on them right now. They have taken a lot of responsibility, being the one who is resolving the conflicts
Yes.
between the different among the different countries in the world.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But the only thing that would reduce the friction between the Republicans and the Democrats would be if President Trump tones down his rhetoric, his policies, getting rid of US aid and getting rid of federal funding programs and getting rid of food for the poorest of the poor. So the onus lies on the executive. So and from what I have seen of the US president, he's not an easy person to calm down or to step down. I wish that domestically he would give the legislature the respect that the legislature wants and come to a compromise. It would serve the US better, and it would serve those people. We sometimes think of US as the richest country of the world and things like that. There are large swaths of people in the US who are very poor, who don't get 2 square meals a day, who are marginalized. So this state of affairs, which can't bring food to the table,